This is GED teacher Damon Tennant, and in this week's video, I want to review some of the things that are important to think about on the GED test as it relates to pictures and also graphs. And so I'm going to show you a couple of things here that you need to be thinking about as it relates to both pictures and graphs on the GED. So we definitely know we're going to get the text kinds of questions, and I'm speaking specifically about social studies, science, and the RLA test in this particular video. But we want to take a look at how do we work with these things. And so one of the first things I want to point out is that the first thing you got to do when you see a picture or a graph, in this case we have a graph here, you want to first go to the legend and see what is the actual title of the graph. So here we see Rockland Soft Incorporated's monthly sales summary. So, that's the company, and here's their sales summary. And over here we see the sales, and here's the number, so number of sales. And over here we see sales team member, and we see John, and we see Kelly, and we see Chris. Okay, and so we see, the green, that's software package. So John sold 15 software packages, and blue is service agreements. And so we see here our service agreements. And so just based upon this chart, there can be tons of questions that you can generate, but I've generated just one here to kind of get us going. Okay, so the question here is, which statement is supported by the monthly sales summary? So the first statement is Chris leads the sales team in service agreements. So we go up here, blue is service agreements. We go down here, it's Chris. Does he lead the team? No, he does not lead the team. He does lead one of the team members, but he doesn't lead the whole team because this team member here is the leader. Then B, Kelly underperforms her counterparts in the software package sales only. So underperforms, that's a vocabulary word. Maybe you know that, and maybe you don't, but that means she's not doing as well. So Kelly underperforms her counterparts. Here are her counterparts in software package sales only. That software package is the green. So if that is true, she does underperform them in software packages, but she also underperforms them in service agreements. So Kelly, while half of that is true, the other half is untrue, so we can't choose that one. Then C, John is the team's sales manager. Well, we know that John is the leader, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the sales manager. So that might be one that can trick us when we're kind of not thinking critically or not working through this well. And remember, the question is, which statement is supported by the monthly sales summary? So that might be an implication, but it's not supported. The facts aren't there. And then D, John more than doubled Kelly's sales of service agreements in the month displayed. So we come over here to blue, it's service agreements. We look at Kelly's at 9. Okay, and then we look at John's. To double it, he would at least need 18. So he has 23. So we know that is more than doubled Kelly's sales. And so we know that statement is supported by the chart here. Let me move on. So here is another thing that you will probably see on the science test. You'll see something about the food chain, something about how energy is transferred from along the food chain. So we have here some corn, okay, and that's eaten by a locust, and then the locust is in turn eaten by a lizard, in turn, which is eaten by a snake. Okay, so we see the bigger, more powerful, the stronger eats the smaller, eats the less defenses, and it gets consumed that way, and that's how the food chain works. Okay, so here's the question. Using the picture above as a guide, reorder the following in order from lowest to highest on the food chain. So we have a fly, we have an owl, we have a gecko, we have a snake. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to kind of draw a fly, and sorry that fly is not that good. And then I'm going to come over here, and then I'm going to kind of draw an owl, and the fly, and then the owl's head, and smiling owl. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a gecko, and so that's going to be looking like that, with 4 legs coming off of it. And then I'm going to draw a snake, which is the last thing. So I'm going to come over here and draw a snake. And Mr. Snake doesn't have any legs. And so we'll just make that so we can see the snake's head. Okay, so then the idea is now we have to reorder these pieces to, whoops, my owl is somehow connected to the question. So we have to reorder these pieces. So we have to look at and to know which one, eats the one to get energy, then eats eaten by the other, because we see this is the kind of design order that we're given. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say, okay, well, we know the fly, the humble fly, of course, is going to be the smallest because, flies, they eat rotten meat, but they don't really eat other animals, at least that I'm aware of. Okay. And then, so the really only question here is really between the snake and the gecko, which eats the other. Well, we do know that the snakes do eat insects, certain types of snakes. But in this case, we know that snakes eat other lizards. So we're going to come over here and move that gecko there, and we're going to move that snake there. And then the owl, sorry to move the question here, but I'm going to have to in order to get these pieces in the right spot. So now, according to this food chain diagram that we've been given up here, now we can say the fly is eaten by the gecko, which is eaten by the snake, which is eaten by the owl. And those are the kinds of questions that you're going to see on the GED. And those are the kinds of things. Now, this is what they would call an application kind of question, where they give you some information and then you apply it in a new context. Okay, so we have our food chain up here. We have our question about the food chain up here. And then we have our owl at the top of the food chain, which right here, which eats the snake eats the gecko, and the gecko eats the fly. And so while on the GED test they say you don't have to have specific knowledge about science, you do have to know a little bit about what's going on in order to know that, man, an owl eats a snake. But then that's knowledge that they really view to be common. And so, you shouldn't really have to read a book to know that owls eat snakes. That's information you would have come across. And even from a snake eating a gecko, the GED test is going to look at that and say, you should know that a snake, in general, is going to be something. And now somebody is going to challenge that. And they're going to say, well, what if it's a really small snake and maybe a gecko can eat it? Well, we can always look at exceptions. But in a general sense, we see the owl eating the snake eating the gecko eating the fly. And so the idea is taking information that we got up here and applying it down here. Again, this has been GED teacher Damon Tennant with the question of the week.